I didn't even realize I'd been banned at first. It came wrapped in politeness, dipped in fake concern, and signed with a smiley face emoji that somehow felt sharper than an insult. "Hey," my cousin Lila texted. "Quick heads up. This year's family resort trip is going to be complicated. Maybe it's best if you sit this one out?" No hard feelings. No hard feelings. That phrase again. The family loved it. They used it the way surgeons use scalpels. Clean, precise, and always cutting something away. I was standing in my kitchen when I read it, barefoot on cold tile, coffee burning on the stove because I'd forgotten to turn it off. Outside, the city was waking up. Car doors slamming, a bus sighing at the corner, someone arguing in a language I didn't understand. Life going on, indifferent. Inside my chest, something old and familiar tightened. That dull ache of being excluded, explained away. Minimized. I typed back slowly. "Complicated how?" The reply came fast. Too fast. She'd rehearsed this. "Well, you know how Aunt Marjorie gets. And Uncle Stan said the resort wants to keep things aligned with their image this year. It's just easier this way." Their image. That was the clue. That was the knife slipping out of the sheath. The resort in question wasn't just any resort. It was the place our family had been going to for over 20 years. A sprawling coastal property with white balconies and palm trees that rattled in the wind like dry applause. Every summer, 3 generations packed themselves into adjoining suites, pretending for 1 week that we liked each other. We took the same group photo every year on the same steps. Same forced smiles. Same people mysteriously absent from the frame as time went on. This year, apparently, I was one of the absences. I called my mother. She didn't answer. I called my sister. Straight to voicemail. That hurt more than Lila's text. Silence always hurts more than insults because it leaves room for imagination. And imagination is cruel. When my mother finally called back that evening, her voice was careful, like she was stepping around broken glass. "It's not a ban," she said quickly. "That's such a strong word." "Then what is it?" I asked. A pause. Too long. "They just think it might be awkward." "For who?" "For everyone." There it was. The unspoken truth finally given air. I was the awkward one. The problem. The person whose presence required explanation. I hung up shortly after, my hands shaking slightly as I set the phone down. I stared at the wall, at a tiny crack running from the corner of the window like a fault line. I thought about how many times I'd been told some version of this story before. Not invited because of space. Not included because of timing. Not welcome because of optics. Optics mattered a lot to my family. They liked doctors, lawyers, people who introduced themselves with titles. They liked success that could be photographed, framed, and bragged about at dinner parties. They liked neat narratives. I didn't fit. At least not the version of me they thought they knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Lila's message, my mother's voice, the phrase, aligned with their image. Around 3 a.m., I gave up and opened my laptop. I didn't know what I was looking for at first. Maybe distraction. Maybe confirmation that I wasn't crazy for feeling hurt. Instead, I found something else. An email thread. Old. Buried. Something I'd archived years ago and forgotten about. It had popped up because I'd been searching for a document related to a property transfer. My name was on it, along with the resort's corporate entity, and a bank I recognized very well. I stared at the screen, my exhaustion clearing in an instant. Because suddenly, the situation looked very different. I hadn't thought about the mortgage in a long time. Not consciously. It was one of those background facts of my life, like knowing how to swim, or which way the sun set. Something established, handled, unremarkable to me but apparently invisible to others. Years ago, when the resort had been struggling, long before it became the glossy, Instagram-friendly paradise my family now flaunted. Its owners had come to the firm I worked with back then. They were desperate, over-leveraged, one bad season away from default. The bank they were with wanted out. No one else wanted in, except me. At the time, I'd just come into some money. Not lottery money, not flashy money, quiet money. The kind that comes from seeing opportunities others dismiss and having the patience to wait them out. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anyone, really. I'd learned early that information was currency, and the less you spent, the more control you had. I'd acquired the mortgage through a holding company, my name buried under layers of legal insulation. Perfectly ordinary, perfectly boring. The resort recovered, thrived even, and the mortgage payments came in like clockwork, filed away, automated, unromantic. Until now. Until my family decided I didn't fit their image. I leaned back in my chair and laughed. Not a big laugh. Not a villain laugh. Just a quiet, surprised sound that felt like something clicking into place. They'd banned me from the family resort. The family resort. I closed the laptop and sat there in the dark, the city humming outside, my mind already moving ahead faster than I could consciously track. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger was loud and messy. This was something else. Something colder. Clearer. I didn't want revenge in the cinematic sense. I didn't want screaming matches or dramatic reveals. I wanted truth to do the work for me. Truth applied gently but precisely, like pressure on a bruise. The next morning, I replied to Lila. "Totally understand," I wrote. "Hope you all have a great time." She responded with a heart and a thumbs up. Relief, probably. Crisis averted. Problem managed. Over the next few weeks, family group chats buzzed with plans, room assignments, dinner reservations, complaints about airfare. I stayed silent, observed, noted who said what, who complained the loudest, who assumed the most. Uncle Stan bragged about upgrading to the penthouse suite. Aunt Marjorie argued about the dress code at the resort restaurant. My sister posted photos of new swimsuits with the caption, "Resort ready." No one asked how I was. No one circled back. My absence was already normalized. A week before the trip, I made a phone call. It was short, professional, forgettable to anyone listening in. I verified a payment schedule, asked about occupancy rates, inquired about refinancing options, hypothetically. The man on the other end was polite, deferential. He didn't know who I was personally, just that my entity held their paper. That was enough. "Everything looks good," he said. "We're actually considering expanding next year." "Interesting," I replied. "Growth can be tricky." He laughed nervously, not sure if I was joking. "I'll be in touch," I said, and ended the call. 2 days later, I sent an email, also short, also polite. Subject line, routine review. I requested updated financials, maintenance reports, and a meeting with senior management during the week of my family's stay. I suggested a date and time. Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. I didn't mention my family. I didn't mention the ban. There was no need. The response came within the hour. "Of course," they wrote. "We'll make ourselves available." Wednesday morning arrived bright and hot. I dressed simply. Tailored pants, a linen shirt, nothing flashy. I arrived at the resort just before 10, walking through the same lobby I'd walked through dozens of times as a guest. No one recognized me. Why would they? I'd always been in the background, trailing behind louder personalities, my role defined by proximity rather than presence. The receptionist smiled politely. "How can I help you?" "I'm here for a meeting," I said, giving my name. Her smile froze, just for a fraction of a second, then widened again. Too much. "Of course. Right this way." We passed the bar where my uncle was probably already nursing his second drink. We passed the pool where my cousins would soon be arranging themselves for photos. We passed the restaurant my mother loved, the one with the ocean view and overpriced seafood. In the conference room, the resort's general manager and two executives waited, standing when I entered. Hands were shaken, pleasantries exchanged, bottled water offered. They were nervous. I could tell. Not because of anything I'd said, but because money has a smell, and it makes people sweat. We sat. "I'll keep this brief," I said. "This is a routine review, as I mentioned. The resort has performed well, but there are some concerns." The word concerns did exactly what it was supposed to do. Spines straightened, pens hovered. We talked numbers, occupancy, staffing costs, deferred maintenance. I asked questions I already knew the answers to, watching how they answered. Who deflected? Who over-explained? Then I leaned back and folded my hands. "There's also a reputational aspect I'd like to discuss," I said. The general manager nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. Brand alignment is very important to us." I smiled. "So I hear." That was when the door opened. My Uncle Stan walked in, phone pressed to his ear, laughing. He froze when he saw me. Actually froze, like someone had hit pause on him. His face went through confusion, irritation, then something like panic. I'm sorry," he stammered, covering the phone. "I thought this room was—" "It's fine," I said calmly. "We're almost done." He didn't leave. He couldn't. Curiosity glued him to the spot. The general manager stood up awkwardly. "Mr. Evans, this is—" "We've met," Stan said, eyes locked on me now. "At family dinners." The room shifted. Something unspoken passed between the executives. "Yes," I said. "We have." I stood, gathering my folder. "One last thing," I added, turning back to the table. "I won't be renewing under the current terms unless certain values are reassessed." Silence. "What values?" the manager asked carefully. "Inclusivity," I said. "Among others." I left without another word. By dinner, everyone knew. The family group chat exploded. Messages overlapped, contradicted each other, escalated. Questions, accusations, confusion. "What are you doing here? Why didn't you say anything? Is this some kind of joke?" my mother called, hysterical. "Why didn't you tell us?" she demanded. "Tell you what?" I asked. "That you owned this." "I don't own the resort," I corrected gently. "I hold the mortgage." Silence on the line. Heavy. Weighted. "They said you're causing problems," she whispered. I looked out at the ocean from my balcony, the one I'd booked myself, without telling anyone. The water was calm, indifferent, eternal. "No," I said. "I'm just existing." The next morning, the resort staff was different. Politer, tenser. Word had spread. People smiled at me like they were afraid not to. At breakfast, my family avoided my table, except Lila. She sat down across from me, eyes glossy. "I didn't know," she said. "If I had known?" "You would have invited me?" I asked. She hesitated. That was answer enough. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I didn't demand apologies. I simply stayed, ate my meals, attended my meetings, walked the grounds. By the end of the week, the story had changed. They hadn't banned me, people said. It was a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. They'd always meant for me to come. Funny how the narrative adjusts itself when money is involved. On the last night, we took the group photo. Same steps, same smiles. This time, I stood in the center. No one asked me to move. As the camera clicked, I realized something that surprised me. The satisfaction wasn't in being seen as powerful. It wasn't in their discomfort or sudden politeness. It was in knowing that they'd tried to erase me and failed, not because I fought them loudly, but because I'd built a life so solid that their approval was never required. They banned me from the family resort. Then they found out who owned their mortgage. And nothing about me changed at all.